Yulma, this is ABC News coming to you from Ngunnawal country, and we also acknowledge other people and families with connection to the lands of the ACT. Tonight, Penny Wong commits millions more in aid to Gaza as she makes the case for peace during a visit to Israel. Also tonight, help for Canberra families feeling the financial strain as they prepare to send children back to school. Canberra drivers put on notice, get ready for fines and demerit points if you're caught using your mobile behind the wheel. And what a debut. Steve Smith's first innings as an Australian opener ended by Shamar Joseph's first ball in Test cricket. Good evening, I'm James Glenday. It is always great to be with you. Well, Australia's Foreign Minister is in Israel tonight, making the case for peace as concerns grow that more countries could be drawn into the Middle East war. Penny Wong expressed solidarity with the families of hostages taken by Hamas on the 7th of October. She also promised more aid as a deal was struck to allow medicine to reach those still held captive in Gaza.
Australia's Foreign Minister visiting the Jewish state and a region in the midst of war to talk with power brokers and to hear from some of those who are suffering, relatives who face the agonising wait for news of their loved ones. Israel says 132 hostages are still being held inside Gaza.
It was incredibly moving, and this 102 days has been just devastating for them, and I'm really grateful for that opportunity. Thank you very much.
Penny Wong is now the most senior Australian official to have visited Israel since the October 7 Hamas attacks. She won't be visiting the southern towns where the massacres occurred, and the families of hostages want her to see their bullet-ridden homes.
I hope that any world leader will come and visit and see it in his own eyes, because that's something no story can describe.
Gaza's health authorities say the massive Israeli response to the Hamas attacks has so far killed 24,200 Palestinians and injured more than 61,000. While Penny Wong says she has raised the issue of a ceasefire in her Israeli meetings, it's unlikely her trip will contain any diplomatic surprises as she navigates growing hostilities from Israeli and Palestinian supporters both in this region and in Australia. Penny Wong's next stop in a whirlwind diplomatic tour will be the West Bank, even as war spreads from Gaza's shores to the Red Sea. A US coalition, which includes Australia, using missile diplomacy against the Houthis in Yemen, including fresh strikes on rebel targets today. The Iranian-backed rebels have been busy intensifying attacks on Red Sea shipping and turning this captured container ship into a mobile military parade ground.
We say to our brothers in Palestine, you are not alone. We are here with you until the last drop of our blood.
A standoff growing in the Gulf between war and peace. Alison Horn, ABC News, Jerusalem.
Beijing is calling for a resumption of military cooperation with Australia while suggesting a Japanese warship was responsible for a sonar attack on Australian Navy personnel last year. China's ambassador made the claim while also warning the federal government against cooperation with the democratic island of Taiwan. Here's Defence correspondent Andrew Green.
Welcome, His Excellency.
Back from a Beijing break and toasting a new year of diplomatic dialogue with a glass of local red.
To the friendship between China and Australia, cheers.
Australian wine still subjected to crippling trade sanctions, which he hopes will soon end.
I hope that in the new year, the relationship between China and Australia will see sustained, sound and steady development.
This year, the ambassador also wants a resumption of defence cooperation. China continues to insist one of its warships did not fire an undersea sonar last year, which injured Australian divers in international waters. Now, a startling new claim suggesting Japan may be to blame.
A third country boat nearby, whether or not there was sonar from the other side, other party, we're not sure.
We made strong representations to China about this incident, and we stand by the representations that we made.
In the new Chinese Year of the Dragon, the ambassador's signalling a far less fierce approach to Australia. But as always, the topic of Taiwan's causing friction. And in coming days, he's demanding meetings with foreign affairs officials to discuss this country's position. China's particularly furious at the Albanese government's recent public statements congratulating Taiwan on its presidential elections.
We are strongly opposed to such a statement.
But he's denied his government offered a bribe to the tiny Pacific nation of Nauru, who this week switched diplomatic allegiances from Taiwan to Beijing. Andrew Green, ABC News, Canberra.
Canberra families feeling the pinch are being assured there is financial support available as they prepare to send children back to school. As the cost of uniforms, shoes and technology add up, many parents are finding that money is tight.
With only a couple of weeks before kids are back in the classroom, the cost of getting them there and then through the year is already front of mind for parents.
I've got 3 boys, so the cost definitely adds up doing it 3 times over. It'll be a bit more planning for day-to-day things and extracurriculars, but as long as we budget, we should get there.
From uniforms to shoes and even the cost of sport and music lessons, things are adding up. While many are finding solutions in the sales.
Being able to get shoes when they're on special and half price sort of stuff is great. Want to try a pink one on?
For those families where that's not enough, applications are now open for the ACT government's means-tested financial support scheme.
They can apply online to get between $400 and $700 to support their children at school.
Demand for the fund is expected to be bigger than in previous years, and more money could be tipped in if needed.
It's there for a purpose so that no child misses out. No family wants to see their children miss out on any of the activities that a good education can provide.
With new data estimating it now costs almost $80,000 to put a child through public school in the ACT, the opposition is adamant not enough is being done.
With the cost of living crisis, we see an unprecedented number of Canberrans who are in that middle bracket doing it tough.
But the minister stresses this isn't all that's on offer.
Schools also provide additional supports with free personal hygiene products, free uniforms, book packs, excursion costs are covered as well.
Only time will tell if that's enough. Lottie Twyford, ABC News, Canberra.
The bus driver involved in last year's Hunter Valley wedding tragedy has been formally charged with 26 new offences, including 10 counts of manslaughter. It brings the total number of charges laid against Brett Andrew Button to 89. 10 guests died in June when their bus crashed near the town of Greta after a wedding. The 58-year-old did not appear in court. The magistrate continued his bail conditions, which include a curfew and a ban on driving. Canberrans are being urged to stop using their phones while driving as police prepare for new penalties to come into effect next month. 56,000 people have been caught doing the wrong thing since special cameras to detect phone use were introduced last year.
It seems drivers on Canberra's roads need to keep their hands to themselves. Every day, 225 people are being caught using their phone while driving.
It's really disappointing to see so many people choosing to use their phone while they're driving. 2 seconds away from the road doubles your risk of a crash.
Canberra has 2 static and 3 transportable phone detection cameras. The static camera on High Marsh Drive in Symonston has caught 20,000 people since being installed in June 2023, while the static camera on Gungahlin Drive has snapped over 6,000 people since November. Parks Way in Acton is where the portable cameras detected the most offenders. 12,000 warning notices have been issued since November last year, but Transport Canberra says numbers are still tracking up.
We hope that once the fines start being issued next month, that will provide an additional deterrent for people.
From February, those fines will be hefty. $514 and 3 demerit points if you use your phone for a call, $632 and 4 points for using social media. An education campaign is planned, and drivers are being encouraged to learn the full extent of the rules.
What I'm not 100% sure is what I can do given I've got a hand-free.
I'm not sure how it works with, CarPlay and touching the screen on the car.
You're not allowed to touch or do anything with your phone, including the music.
Bluetooth, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are legal ways to stay connected. Voice assistants like Siri are off limits.
With any new technology being introduced in the vehicle and then laws to counter that, you are going to have challenges in communicating those changes. Our advice is just don't use your phone at all.
A simple message on your phone. James Fiver, ABC News, Canberra.
It's been revealed an Australian man accused of running an SMS scam allegedly sent more than 17 million messages to potential victims in a single week. Zhuan Su was arrested in the lead up to Christmas, with police finding 2 SIM boxes at his home in Sydney. They say the 39-year-old used the devices to run a phishing scam, sending texts that appeared to be from Australia Post and the toll road company linked. Zhuan Su is facing 2 charges, one of which carries a maximum sentence of 10 years. He's been granted bail and is yet to enter a plea. In an Australian first, a vaccine for respiratory syncytial virus, or RSV, has been approved by the Therapeutic Goods Administration and will soon be available for those aged 60 and over. The GlaxoSmithKline vaccine, called Arexvy, is a protein-based immunisation to help prevent potentially fatal lower respiratory tract disease.
Lisa Loader never believed looking after her grandchildren would make her fearful for her life until she contracted RSV.
I honestly thought I was going to die. It was terrible.
She caught the virus off her 3-year-old grandson in 2022. It rapidly progressed into a serious case of pneumonia, which took months to recover from. A year and a half later, she still experiences shortness of breath.
I actually had my voice box paralysed as well, so for 7 weeks I had no voice.
Now, the Therapeutic Goods Administration has approved a vaccine for RSV. Initially, it'll only be available via private prescription to those 60 and over. The vaccine, called Arexvy, works to boost patients' immune response to the virus.
It is very effective. It has well over 80% effectiveness against serious illness and death.
Experts hope it'll reduce hospitalisations and comorbidities such as asthma.
There's an association with RSV and asthma, so we think we might actually prevent asthma by stopping people getting RSV, but eventually we can decrease the amount of asthma we see.
The producers hope the vaccine will eventually be made available for free under the National Immunisation Program and to other vulnerable groups, including pregnant women and those who are immunocompromised.
For people like Lisa, it's a great relief. She says she'll be getting vaccinated as soon as possible.
You just never know how bad you're going to get it. You might get a mild dose and you might end up like I did, and really scared and really sick.
Pharmaceutical company GlaxoSmithKline says it's working to secure supply and says the jabs will be available soon. Amelia Walters, ABC News.
Fresh from a win in the Iowa caucuses, Donald Trump has turned his attention to the next steps in his campaign for the White House. The landslide victory propels him toward a rematch against Joe Biden at November's US election. But his Republican rivals aren't giving up their fight to stop him just yet.
After his record victory in Iowa, a quick sprint to New Hampshire. A triumphant Donald Trump campaigning in the next state to have its say on who should be the Republican Party's presidential nominee.
If you think that it was easy to get here tonight, you are wrong.
On the way, Mr. Trump made a quick detour to New York for the start of a second defamation case stemming from E. Jean Carroll's claims he sexually abused her. But Donald Trump has found, and Iowa certainly seems to prove it, that his legal troubles are actually helping his campaign.
Good morning!
Ron DeSantis finished well behind in Iowa, but it was enough to keep alive the Florida governor's floundering campaign.
They threw everything but the kitchen sink at me. Well, guess what? We punched our ticket out of Iowa yesterday.
Nikki Haley was squeezed into third, but the former UN ambassador is polling well in New Hampshire.
I promise you that our best days are yet to come.
After Iowa, there's a real sense here that the race to become GOP nominee is now well and truly on. But that energy might not last long. Unless there's a significant upset, Donald Trump could soon have it all sewn up. Former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson's exit after an embarrassingly bad showing in Iowa won't make a difference. But Vivek Ramaswamy is also out, and his votes could go Trump's way in New Hampshire. Yet another potential boost in his seemingly unstoppable campaign. Barbara Miller, ABC News.
Coming up on 7:30 with Laura Tingle, the risky business of volcano tourism in Indonesia.
It's not every day you can see a live active volcano.
The risk of an eruption in an active volcano is never going to be zero.
Bima. Udah bang, karena setiap perjalanan kayak setiap kemana aja kita pasti risikonya berbahaya, apalagi itu gunung aktif kan bang.
Also, I'll speak to the Minister for Science, Ed Husic, about artificial intelligence.
Pakistan has become the third country to be hit by an Iranian attack in a matter of days. The reported strike follows attacks on Iraq and Syria as Tehran lashes out following a dual suicide bombing with responsibility claimed by the Islamic State group. The United States has condemned Iran over its missile strikes, calling them reckless and imprecise. In response to the attacks, Iraq has recalled its ambassador from Tehran. Australian technology companies may have to label content generated by artificial intelligence so it can't be mistaken as genuine. The federal government has released its initial plans to regulate AI in response to its rapid rise. The government will work with industry to develop a voluntary standard for AI content to carry labels and digital watermarks so other programs can also tell when something is AI made. The industry minister says if necessary, he is prepared to make content labels mandatory.
While a lot of people want to use the technology for good, there's always going to be someone motivated with ill will, bad intent, and we're going to have to shape our laws accordingly. And so if it does require a more mandatory response, then we will do so.
To finance now, and China's population has shrunk for the second year in a row. Here's David Chow.
Our biggest trading partner has given an update on how its economy is going, and it's a mixed bag. China's economy grew by 5.2% in the year to December, and while this meets the Chinese government's growth target, surprise, surprise, it's one of China's weakest economic updates in decades, apart from that huge downturn during the COVID years, which was then followed by a hefty, prolonged slump in its property market. Now, China's future isn't looking very young or sprightly. Although China scrapped its one-child policy years ago, its population is shrinking rapidly. Last year, 11 million people died in China, while only 9 million babies were born. This ageing population isn't great for China's economy, and it's not great for ours either. Meanwhile, it was another bad day for the All Ords, which slipped by 1/3% to its lowest level in a month. Evolution mining plunged by more than 17% after it gave a weak trading update, and other mining stocks also fell. This comes after a sizable drop in gold and oil prices, while iron ore bounced back a little from its recent sell-off. And it's been pretty rough for the Aussie dollar, which in 2 weeks has dropped from 68 to 65.6 US cents. And it's mainly because the US greenback has gotten stronger, after a senior official from the US Federal Reserve told markets to basically get real and not expect rapid interest rate cuts this year. And finally, with the exception of Japan, it was pretty much red wherever you looked in global markets, with Hong Kong being the worst performer. And that's finance.
To sport now, and in cricket, West Indies debutant Shamar Joseph has made a dream start to his Test career, removing Steve Smith for 12 in his first match as an Australian opening batter. Earlier, Pat Cummins and Josh Hazlewood took 4 wickets each as Australia bowled out the West Indies for 188 on day 1 of the first Test in Adelaide.
Steve Smith was made to wait in his first match as opening batsman. Pat Cummins surprisingly sending the visitors in to bat. That decision paid off, the captain finding a breakthrough in his very first over.
Slightly for Lewin taken! Cameron Green, that's why he's there!
The skipper struck again in the first hour before Josh Hazlewood's 250th Test wicket put the home side well on top.
Oh! Well, he's misjudged that one badly.
The West Indies dug in after lunch, debutant Kavem Hodge showing patience. His innings came to an abrupt end on 12, as Hazlewood picked up another.
Gone, just like that.
Kirk Mackenzie scored his first half-century in Test cricket before falling the very next over.
Hazlewood is having a day out here in Adelaide.
Hazlewood and Cummins with 4 wickets each before a late surge frustrated Australia's attack. Debutant Shamar Joseph and Kemar Roach putting on a 55-run partnership for the final wicket.
Oh, that's close. That's really close. It's been given.
Steve Smith entered the field for his first bat as an opener, but Joseph's dream start continued, removing the veteran with his very first delivery.
Beautifully done. First ball, first wicket. What a start.
Marnus Labuschagne the next to go, Joseph with 2 key wickets for the visitors.
And possibly could be involved. Yes, our plan has worked. He's done it again.
Australia 2 down, but still on top, ahead of day 2. Cameron Slessor, ABC News.
In tennis, a 16-year-old was the first player into the Australian Open's 3rd round, with Russia's Mira Andreeva producing one of the tournament's major upsets. Australian qualifier Storm Hunter is also through, along with a ruthless Alex de Minaur.
As the rain arrived at Melbourne Park, the Demon shone under the bright lights of Rod Laver.
Oh, that's beautiful.
The world number 10 steamrolling Italian Matteo Arnoldi, dropping just 6 games.
And it's a demolition by the Demon.
I thought I just had to be solid here, use the crowd, try to stay focused, and I'm very happy to get the win today.
A second Aussie soon joined him in the 3rd round, the world's top-ranked doubles player who had to qualify for the main draw.
Hunter storms into the 3rd round.
This doesn't happen every day, so I'm super excited and enjoy it with you guys. I love playing in front of you.
Earlier, a star was born, Russian teenager Mira Andreeva stunning 6-seed Ons Jabeur in 54 minutes.
And that will do it. What a performance from the 16-year-old. Has defeated her idol in straight sets.
It's her first top 10 win and her first match back on Rod Laver since finishing as runner-up in last year's Junior Girls Oz Open final.
I just feel like I am a bit more mature than I was before. I just...
You're only 16.
Well, that's true, but last year I was 15, and so...
Last night, Isla Tomjanovic staged a fight back for the ages.
There's the break.
Down 4-1 and a double break to Croatian Petra Marcic, she rallied, reeling off 5 straight games to win the marathon standoff in just under 3 hours. 12 months ago, the 30-year-old went under the knife for a knee injury.
Tonight was just a huge kind of reward that feels amazing because you don't know every time when you're coming back from surgery if you'll come back. It's a gamble in a way.
Jessica Stewart, ABC News.
Meanwhile, the Australian Open was also celebrating Indigenous culture today with art and performances for the tournament's First Nations Day. The event featured a smoking ceremony and dances. This morning, a group of young Indigenous tennis players trained at Margaret Court Arena under the supervision of Grand Slam champion Yvonne Goolagong-Cawley. The Wiradjuri tennis legend was also celebrating the 50th anniversary of her first Australian Open title. In cycling, Mexico's Isaac del Toro Romero has won the second stage of the Tour Down Under in South Australia. Riders welcomed much cooler conditions as the stage made its way from Adelaide's eastern suburbs into the hills. Australian Luke Burns and Dutchman Yardi van der Lee broke away from the peloton early and built a lead of more than 6 minutes. However, they were caught with 20 kilometres to go, setting up a final sprint. Romero went for the finish line early and could not be caught. In basketball, Canberra Capital star Jade Melbourne has been selected for the Australian Opal squad to play in Brazil next month. The squad has the task of securing Australia's ticket to the Paris Olympics later this year.
At just 21 years old, Jade Melbourne is playing beyond her years. She's in her 4th season with the Canberra Capitals and has also played in the WNBA for the Seattle Storm. Now she's a step closer to achieving her childhood dream.
Something that I've always wanted to do is go to the Olympics. I think that's always been my goal ever since I was as young as I can remember.
But first, Melbourne and the 12-woman Opal squad need to qualify for the Paris Games by travelling to Brazil at the end of the month to play 3 games. One against the home side, then Germany and Serbia, with the top 3 finish locking in their ticket to Paris.
It's the pinnacle for me to represent my country, so I'm looking forward to getting with the girls and getting over there and hopefully doing the job.
The squad includes last WNBL season's most valuable player, Kayla George, and veteran Lauren Jackson.
There she is, Jackson, 3.
While Melbourne's been in the Opal squad for a few years, Caps coach Kristen Veal says she's ready to make a big impression.
Chance for Melbourne to tidy it up.
I think she can make an impact. It's just a matter of her adapting and evolving what she's been doing here for pretty much 40 minutes a game to what the Opals need specifically from her.
In the lead-up, she will continue playing for the Capitals, who come up against the Sydney Flames on Friday.
We're going to be throwing everything we've got at it. We know that they've got some experience. We know they'll be coming off a game against Adelaide. But for us, it's just to learn from the first 2 games like we have all season.
A big few months ahead for a big talent. Anthea Moody, ABC News, Canberra.
To the weather now, and tonight's viewer picture comes from David Flannery. He captured a storm brewing over Lake Jindabyne this morning. It does seem as though a great number of our viewers are still living their best lives in other parts of this wonderful Canberra region at the moment. And yes, we are slightly jealous. If you've got a photo you'd like to share, please send it in to canberraweatherpics@abc.net.au. Now, as expected, it was fairly wet for a lot of today. After a low of 14 degrees at the airport, we did reach 23, but it felt slightly cooler than that for most of the day. And this is what the radar looked like. At last check, about 26 millimetres had fallen at Mount Janini in the Brindabellas, about 6 at the airport and around 15 in Tuggeranong. There were decent falls in the Snowy Mountains today too. Perisher Valley reached just 15 degrees, Cooma hit 22, Bega 28 and Moruya a top of 26. In the capitals, Brisbane reached 30, Sydney 29 and Melbourne 23. And as we just saw at the tennis, there was a bit of rain around, particularly in Melbourne, but actually in all 3 cities. On the satellite, there's a lot of activity over the tropics still, and there's actually a high chance of a cyclone forming off Queensland early next week. But right now, that cloud over the southeast is the main feature of interest for us. A warm, humid air mass from the tropics met a cold front, which triggered the showers and storms that you can see on your screen. But tomorrow that front will move away and things should start to clear up around our region pretty much immediately. Sydney is likely to be quite hot tomorrow, about 30 is forecast, and Melbourne should be windy and cool, 21 is on the way. There could be some light showers around the south coast, about 24 is forecast for Batemans Bay, but we are expecting to see the sun inland again, 25 likely in Yass and 24 in Cooma. Here in Canberra and Queanbeyan, after a low of 16 degrees, we should get to a sunny top of around 24 or 25 degrees. There's also the chance of a storm. Sunrise is 2 minutes past 6 and sunset is 24 minutes past 8. And looking ahead, well, summery conditions are back. 27 expected on Friday, 29 on Saturday and 31 degrees forecast for Sunday. And that is the latest from the Canberra newsroom for this Wednesday evening. I'm James Glenday. It is always lovely to be with you. Stay with us now for 7:30 with Laura Tingle, and until tomorrow, good night.